disruptive.
Weird thing to happen. So there was a rally that happened over the weekend, folks, in Toronto. The Canada First rally. And they were protesting against mass immigration, the open borders crisis that we're dealing with here in Canada, the influx of migrants that are being poured into the country without any real accountability, documentation, how we're going to, accompany this mass population boom into the country where already services are crumbling, already services are lacking. How are we going to deal with this? So people came out to this event. This was at Christie Pits Park in Toronto. And anyone that's familiar with baseball, especially in the Toronto area, they know exactly this park. They know exactly this location. And there's a bit of history to this location, as we're going to get into in the segment here. So people attended this rally calling for, stop mass immigration, start mass deportations. Remigration is necessary. September 13th from 1 to 4. And they were met with counter-protesters. So there was a bit of a clash, ladies and gentlemen. This is from Global News. Police arrest multiple people at opposing immigration demonstrations in Toronto. 10 people were arrested when a demonstration calling for deportations and an end to mass immigration was met by a counter-demonstration in a Toronto park known as the scene of a historic anti-Semitic riot. I told you there was history. No country has a bright tale. Let's just say that. Hundreds of people supporting immigration gathered at Toronto's Christie Pits Park on Saturday afternoon in response to a demonstration encouraging mass deportations and nationalism called Canada First. Organizers of the Canada First rally took to social media last month to promote their event with a poster advertising it for 1 p.m. reading "Stop Mass Immigration, Start Mass Deportations, Remigration is Necessary." So that's the poster we just saw earlier. Numerous pro-immigration counter-rallies had planned their own community rallies at the park with a start time of noon. Bring friends, water, snacks, art supplies, and noisemakers, and anything else you'll need to spend an afternoon in the park. One post prompted the counter-rally read, "In 1933, thousands of people converged at the park for one of Canada's most notable anti-Semitic riots and counter-protests that broke after a Nazi-inspired flag with a swastika was pulled out during a baseball game." So, this particular location has a bit of some history. Whether you agree or disagree with the years of people coming together, it's very historical on people converging to this park, not just for baseball, not just for the love of sports, but also for intense political movements. In advance of Saturday's demonstration, police posted a social media statement saying that they were aware of a rally and counter-rallies and had planned to be at the park. City Councilor Diane Sachs posted a statement on social media last month while the event was in the planning stages, calling it a hate demonstration. "This rally does not represent what we stand for as a city or as Canadians," Sachs said in her statement. Or is it Saxe? Because it's got that E. Is it the E is silent, or I don't know how to pronounce it. Anyway, adding that she was appalled at the choice to hold the rally at Christie Pits Park with its storied history. At the planned start time of the rally, demonstrators carrying Canadian flags marched from Christie Pits onto Bloor Street West, beginning their march across the city. Dozens of officers lined Bloor Street West to block off portions of the road as the anti-immigration demonstrators marched from the city's west end to its downtown core. The counter-ralliers remained at Christie Pits Park, playing drums, chanting, offering face painting, and handing out snacks and drinks. There were a few intense moments when protesters from either side clashed. A standoff ensured at one point between the two groups when a few dozen anti-immigration demonstrators made their way into the park and stood opposite a more sizable group of counter-ralliers. Around half a dozen mounted police units rode between the opposing groups in the park, positioning themselves at times to keep the crowds apart. Toronto police said a man was arrested for assault at the protests around 12:40 p.m. in the area of Christie Pits Park. In an update half an hour later, police said 6 people in total have been arrested, with 4 more arrests being announced on social media later in the afternoon. Police have not immediately provided information about the reason of the arrests. The demonstration follows on the trail of a march in London, UK, organized by far-right activist Tommy Robinson that drew more than 110,000 people on Saturday. Police say they intended to provide more information on the rest later. So this is it's kind of been mainstreamed. It's kind of gone all across the world. They've been protesting about mass migration, about open borders policy. This is obviously something that has been brought to attention over many years now. We have covered it, the extents of just how we are rushing in people, how NGOs are, co-opting themselves with government agencies, with government bodies to bring in this mass influx of people. And it's not that we are against immigration. It's not saying that we don't want people to come in if they are willing to, do it in a legal sense. We're not against that. But having this influx of migrants that we don't have accountability for is problematic. And they're obviously experiencing that in the UK. We're experiencing that here in Canada. They're dealing with that in the States. It's all over the place. Ireland, where have you? That this mass influx of people pouring into countries, and we don't have the means of housing and services to meet the demand of people pouring in, is causing problems. It's causing problems. There's a cluster at hospitals. People can't get health care. There's education. People can't get the right services to educate their kids, so it's been problematic there. And just for the community sense, also crime and everything else, it calculates that. So this is why a lot of people came out for this rally, and then people came and counter protested because they believe that no, there's not a problem, that these people are being hateful or deceitful, whatever the case may be. And obviously you see opposing views at the same place. Things got a little heated. So here's just a little footage of this. This is Harrison Faulkner tweeted this out. It says, Canada First rally attendees are forced out of Christie Pits Park in Toronto as hundreds of far-left counter-protesters cheered and shouted out at them. So here's a bit of video. So the counter-protesters came an hour earlier than the Canada First rally. And as soon as the Canada First rally came to Christie Pits Park, they were booed, they were scared out, and Toronto police were trying to escort the two factions, these two rallies, to kind of, ease the tension. So let's take a look at this. And just look at this. It is kind of hilarious that people are deeming this as a hate rally. People are deeming this as like a fascist rally, when you could see all sorts of people. You could see people in the crowd that are different ethnicities that come from different backgrounds, and they're carrying the Canadian flag, which I would say is probably the most diverse flag you could be carrying at this point. That if you are a member of this country, whether born here or immigrated here legally or are a permanent resident, the most diverse you can get is having a Canadian flag and being proud of the country, because that symbolizes your respect and love for everybody in this country, regardless of their background, regardless of their sexual orientation, regardless of their ethnicity. The Canadian flag doesn't represent a specific group of people. It represents Canada. It represents the people within Canada. So calling this like a hateful rally or a bigoted rally, I just don't see it. I just don't see it. Because if it was a hateful rally, I don't think they'd be carrying the Canadian flag. I think there would be more, other flags that they'd be carrying. And, to paraphrase the words of George Carlin, flags are symbols and you leave that to the symbol-minded. You get that joke. But anyway, so there's a bit of that there. As it went on, as the two rallies kind of got together, tensions got high, this came about. So this is from Right Blend, saying that at 30 seconds, an Antifa member yells, die fascist, one to the neck, at the Canada First protest in Christie Pits, Toronto. She is a longtime agitator. How do you say that? Ilya McKay. Arrest her. So there was a member in the counter protest section that was screaming at the Canada First rally with these words. And watch how cops kind of don't really, they're trying not to get involved in this.
There's 1 million police officers out here right now. Wow.
So they're arresting this guy, which I don't know if he is part with her. I don't know what his situation is. You can see there's a bunch of cops trying to arrest this one kid, trying to arrest this guy with the spiky hair. There's a lot of cops trying to apprehend one person. And yet, at the same time, this is happening.
Fucking jackass! We're not violent. We're not violent. Fuck you! Shit!
Be careful, you might get buried where you stand. The finger's not long enough, lady.
Fuck you, fascist! What's your message to people? Die, fascist!
Hey, chill.
One to the neck!
Hey, relax.
Fuck you too!
Hey, be nice.
Fuck you!
Be nice.
One to the neck for you too!
So, the kid, again, I just find it kind of hilarious that people automatically deem this as some sort of hate, bigoted rally when the whole perception of a Canada First rally is getting Canadians together to focus on Canada, to focus on the priorities of Canadians and priorities of this country ahead of other, NGOs and foreign governments and everything else. Like, putting the notions of Canadians when it comes to, the job crisis, when it comes to immigration, how we need to have some sort of structured immigration system that allows for accountability, that allows for, a set number that we can determine, okay, if we're bringing these many people, then we're going to have to upgrade, housing. We're going to have to upgrade hospitals. We're going to have to incorporate. We're going to have to deal with this and so on and so forth. I just find it hilarious that people assume that it's a hate rally. And you could see that the Canadian First rally people that are being screamed at by this woman are being kind and gentle. Hey, be nice, calm down. We're not violent. We're not attacking you. Why are you shouting this? Why are you making threats at us? Like, we're here just holding Canadian flags. Like, it's just crazy that people assume that. But look at the coverage they did with the Freedom Convoy. Look at the coverage they did when it came to people coming together in Ottawa who were also carrying Canadian flags and supporting Canadians. So it kind of plays out.
God damn.
Fuck you, fascist piece of shit. Yeah. Fascist piece of goddamn shit. Hateful. Never seen the cops, you little cunt. Fascist piece of shit. Racist cunt. You're a fascist piece of shit. Racist cunt.
Get on your knees!
Just stay back here, please.
Yeah, no, I'm just.
So again, you see the cops just standing there. They had like 4 or 5 of them arresting one person, which I don't know his story. But here's a woman actively engaging in violent rhetoric. And this was days after what we saw in the United States. She's engaging in violent rhetoric, deliberately telling these people to, you heard it. And the cops aren't doing anything. The cops, there's 5 of them arresting one person. At the same time, this woman is screaming at the top of her lungs, signaling death threats to these people. And the cops are just standing there. I just don't understand the mentality. I don't understand the mentality of why they need 5 people to arrest one person for one thing, but not apprehending or trying to stop the aggression coming out of this person at the same time. You know what I mean? It just seems so crazy that all this is coming about. So here, Charlie Angus wrote a little Substack about this. Again, the people that are telling you about tolerance, the people that are telling you about, love and respect and diversity, and are telling you about the values of being Canadian, people like Charlie Angus here are trying to demonize Canadians. So the people that are trying to tell you about tolerance and love and respect for the country are the same people that are stoking the flames to have intolerance and hatred within the country. So here he says, the racist hate mobs are coming to Christie Pits on Saturday, September 13th. The choice is provocative. This is where people fought the Nazis in Toronto in 1933. Funny, does he mention about the fact that the Canadian government brought a bunch of Nazis into the country post-World War II? That's a bit of our dark history that never gets told and never gets exposed by people like Charlie Angus. Where's that hateful bigotry? Where's the anger for that? But no, get angry at Canadians holding the Canadian flag in support of Canada. There will be a huge rally in the park this Saturday at noon to show the haters they aren't welcome. So, do you think that this is going to be good? Do you think this is going to be good? They are trying to silence out an opposing view? Again, we just saw what happened in the United States. We're seeing the tensions rise, that political violence is becoming more and more noticeable, that we're constantly sowing more and more division. Do you think that this is helping the situation? Do you think this is helping the situation that you're organizing a rally an hour before this rally purposely just to drown them out, to silence them out, to shut them up, to tell them that they're a bunch of racist bigots? Do you think this is helping bring the country back together when we know that there's a huge amount of division in this country We saw it during COVID, and it's only gotten worse. It's only gotten worse. So do you think this is helping the situation? Or is this going to add more fuel to the fire of hatred and sow more division into Canada? And it's going to make society even worse when you do stuff like this. So here's one of the protesters, the counter protesters, had a picket sign here. It says Christie Pits, Nazi free since 33. Obviously, you know, with the historical context of this. Again, I don't agree that that should have happened. You know, again, you look at any country, you look at any of historical context, there's going to be some ugliness. There's going to be some dark history wherever you go in the world. But these are people, these are Canadians that came together in support of Canada and are waving around the Canadian flag. It's not like they're waving around the swastika itself, as they wanted you to believe that during the Freedom Convoy that was the case, but we know that that was false, that was made up. Someone photoshopped that image purposely to undermine the cause of why people showed up to this rally. Just like how they're trying to undermine the cause of why people are showing up to this rally is because we have a migration crisis. We have an open border situation. We have an ongoing situation where Canadians are feeling just stretched to the limits when it comes to the mass amount of migrants that are being poured into the country without any real accountability. And if you don't have accountability, if you don't have proper borders and security and defense of the country, you don't really have a country. And that's not being done by the left wing or the right wing. That's being done by the billionaire class. The billionaire class don't see countries as countries. That's why they're okay with open borders. That's why they're okay with sending a huge amount of people from country to country. They don't care. They don't care about security or defense or values or culture or anything like that. They just want to change around the demographics to fit their needs, to fit their agenda. And that is what's so problematic about this. And that's why people show up to rallies like this. Here's Karma Sad also doing some, was at the scene here. And it says, free for all on Bloor Street as Canada First protesters and Antifa counter-protesters leave Christie Pits. So this was after the confrontation within the park. This is them now going out to the streets of Bloor, walking down to downtown, and obviously met with confrontation here. Let's take a look. So you can see there's the Canada First rally. They're walking away. They're minding their own business. They're there doing their thing. And of course, you're seeing people, the counter protesters, trying to aggravate them. And this is, again, how is this helping your cause? How is this helping your side of the argument that you're agitating the other side? You're not just protesting. You're not just making a statement for yourself. You're deliberately agitating them. You can see that one woman, this woman here, I mean, fast forward a bit here. This one particular person right here behind the cop on the bike, it looks like she was throwing something at them. So again, how is that making your case? How is that making your argument? If you're going to throw things at peaceful demonstrators that are simply holding the Canadian flag and are focused on Canadian priorities, which majority of the country agrees that there's an immigration crisis. It's not we're against immigration. We're not against people coming to this country that want to form an alliance, that want to be a part of, what's great about this country and great about Canada. It's not we're against that. It's about the fact that we're pouring in people and we don't have a system that's able to properly track and properly monitor the situation. Bringing in these people is going to cause a lot of these towns and communities an uphill battle to maintain this population boom. Again, we don't have proper housing. We have long lineups at hospitals because we have no way to track and measure how many people are pouring into this country and what services need to be updated for the amount of people that are pouring into the country. That's why they're protesting. It's not racism. It's not bigotry. It's because mathematically, we're in a crisis. You can't bring in a certain amount of people, a huge amount of people, and not look at, services and not look at where these people are going to go, where they're going to live, where they're going to work. You can't do that without looking at the other measures too. That's why they're protesting. And the people going against this, it's not helping your cause when you're trying to chase them down, when you're trying to beat them up, when you're trying to throw things at them. It's just so crazy. So here's some more from Carmen Sad. It says, after being encircled by counter-protesters at Christie Pits and assaulted on the streets, this guy, Joe Anijar, answers whether his Canada First rally was worth the trouble. So here's what he had to say. This guy here holding a Canadian flag.
Is it worth it?
Fucking right it is.
You okay?
I'm good. This is fucking our streets. This is the stuff that you need to do. The sacrifices for this country. I put my ass on the line. You rock, Joe.
So he is stating that this is, he's doing this because he believes that we have to do this. I wouldn't use the wording of our streets. I know I think he's trying to mean that it's Canadian streets. I don't think he's trying to make this as a racist tone, but obviously if someone's going to pick this up, someone's going to take this out of context. We know this from numerous amount of times. Mainstream media is guilty of this. Other people are guilty of this. They take things out of context and they turn it into something that isn't. I'm sure someone's going to look at this and go, oh, that's racist undertones right there. Mentioning our streets as a white person. But I'm assuming based on the context here, he's talking about Canadians. He's talking about citizens of the country. Not a specific group of citizens within the country. I'm hoping that's the case. So maybe the wording isn't right there, that maybe changing the phrasing could make it better, but he's doing this for the reason of the fact that majority of Canadians can kind of all agree on is the fact that we know that Canada's been hijacked. We know that Canadian politicians don't reflect the values and the policies that Canadian citizens, majority of them agree on, that we're, wasting our money overseas, that we're funding all these, foreign wars that are continuing on. We're not investing into our country, into our people, into our industries. We're kind of going against our own citizens, especially with freedom of speech. You look at Bill 663, the Online Harms Act, that is a direct threat to people's freedom of speech here in this country. So this is why you're going to see a lot more of these protests. You're going to see a lot more people speaking out about this and being Canadian first. is because we're in a situation where we don't really have representation that is willing to respond for Canadians. And right now, with Mark Carney as Prime Minister, the Liberal Party, we know that, for quite a long time, the World Economic Forum has penetrated our cabinets. And we know that our country has been hijacked with or without Donald Trump. Like, everyone that was worried about Donald Trump in the 51st state completely forgot or missed out at the point that our country's already been hijacked. Our country's already been taken over. Our sovereignty has already been taken away. So that's why so many people are protesting about this. And again, you don't have to agree what this person is saying. You don't have to agree with this rally or what they're representing. But for you to have a counter protest and scream death threats and agitating them purposely to vilify them, it's not making a case. You're not making an argument against it. You're just agitating them and making yourself look foolish because it got caught on camera. So here's Concerned Canadian. So this was further down the street. They're walking down Bloor, heading towards downtown area, and says, "Do you believe that the Canadian First demonstration had any material impact?" So here's going down the street, heading towards the downtown area. They were at Christie Pits. They were kind of drove away from the counter rallies that were there an hour earlier, agitating them. The one woman saying death threats, which again, it's kind of hilarious. Cops didn't do anything about it. But here's later on in the day, the Canadian First people going down the street, and this is what they captured here.
Canada first! Canada first! Canada first! Canada first! Canada first! Canada first!
And again, right off the bat, I just want to show people this. Hold on. I want to show people this. So, look at the crowd of people there. There's young people. There's older people. There's a black guy there.
Canada first! Canada first! Canada first! Canada first!
There's a Hispanic guy there. There's a Chinese guy over there. So again, I find it kind of hilarious that people immediately jump on to say that this is a racist, bigoted, white supremacist, Nazi, fascist, whatever you call it, event, and saying how disgusting, awful it is, when these are Canadians of all walks of life coming together, raising the Canadian flag and chanting Canada First, meaning that Canadians should have their priorities first before we start messing around with other countries, before we start investing in foreign wars. We should be focusing on the priorities of Canadians. And considering the fact that unemployment is continuing to increase, that inflation has run amok, that cost of living is making it unaffordable for people to survive in this country, this is why people are coming out to protest of all walks of life. The same way we saw with the Freedom Convoy. They wanted to frame that as a white supremacist event. That was not the case, because as we saw, there was people of white background, of black people, Mexican, there was Indian, there was skis, there was Muslim people, there was Jewish people, there was Christians, there was Catholics, there was truckers, there was teachers, there was people of all sorts that came together in a peaceful demonstration, just like they're doing here. But of course, they're going to frame this as a supremacist event. But as you can see, the proof is in the pudding that you can see there's there's a black person there, there's a Hispanic, there's a Chinese person there. So it actually it brought people together. It's not segregating people based on issues. So this is I would say this is probably the most diverse rally you can get, because it's actually about Canadians. It's about the country of Canada and its citizens, and that doesn't single out specific groups of Canadians. But let's take a look at this.
Canada first! Canada first! Canada first! Canada first! Canada first! Canada first! Canada first!
So there's counter protesters. Again, why are they always in mass? You ever notice that? Why are they always masked up? You would think they want to be out loud and proud. Isn't that the whole thing? Out loud and proud and stand for your beliefs? Why are they all masked up? Kind of interesting. It's also interesting to point out the fact that there's a sign there saying Israel committing genocide. Now, I agree with that. I agree with that statement. You know, obviously people that viewed this channel and know about me, I've been very vocal about Israel's attack on Palestinians and genocide and starvation of people, and how this country should not be, you know, funding this kind of terror around the world. I've also spoke out about Canada's funding of Ukraine, how we're sacrificing that nation to pretend to have warfare against Russia, and has caused, you know, devastation. Here's my thing about this. So, the people claiming Israel committing a genocide, that faction of people, wouldn't you think you'd be on the Canada First side of this demonstration? Like, just hearing this out. Because this is what's so bothersome about, you know, what we're dealing with right now. Why I think we're so politically divided is, you know, I live on the, you know, there's a famous quote of Frederick Douglass that talks about, you know, how I would unite with anyone to do good and no one to do evil. And if I was a person, you know, if I was in that person's shoes that was holding Israel committing genocide sign right there, I'd be going over to the Canada First rally. I'd be participating with them, because in my mind, I would think, and I would try to incorporate the Canada First rally, even though it's about immigration, even though it's about, you know, mass deportation or whatnot, that I would try and incorporate that and say, okay, you guys are chanting Canada First. So I would try to convince them to say, well, if we're focusing on Canadian priorities like immigration, can we also incorporate not spending money on foreign countries? Can we also involve not spending money on foreign countries and their war crimes and their entanglements of committing genocide? Because I think that would be Canadian First. Wouldn't you think? That we invest the money here, we invest the money into our people here in this country, and not sending money overseas to commit atrocities. Like, I think that would go hand in hand. But you could see here, they're trying to, you know, distance themselves from the Canada First rally. And again, is it helping your cause? Is it helping your argument? If you're trying to separate yourselves from, you know, the Canada First rally, you don't have to agree with everything that they're stating. But the point of, you know, what Frederick Douglass says is we have to unite somehow. We have to bring and come together on certain, you know, common issues. And we've seen this throughout human history, that people can unite, people can come together if they have common issues, if they have a common enemy. We could see that people can unite, but we live in such a hyper partisan world where everything just seems segregated and everything just kind of gets, you know, broken up into their little bits and pieces, that we become more divided. We be so more, you know, division into our society. And the fact that we can't come together on, you know, key issues that I think majority of us could actually agree on if we just put our differences aside, is troublesome for society. And I did a whole Substack about this. You can go check it out, kitzcorner.substack.com, about, you know, where we are right now in this kind of dark era where tensions are getting worse. I feel like we're not no longer being civil. And that is dangersome for, you know, the country. It's dangersome for communities. And it's a danger for human life. That in order for us to maintain our existence on this earth, we're going to have to find a way to come together. We're going to have to find a way to have this ability to be civil towards one another. And if we can't, then that is going to send alarm bells to our existence going into the future. Like, I wish I could say that's a hyperbole. I wish I could say that's just nonsense. But here we are in a situation where, you know, the hyper-partisan has just run rampant. Political violence has struck, you know, the nation around the world. I, you know, looking into the future, it's dire that we have these conversations. So that's why, you know, unite with someone to do good and no one to do evil. If you both had the same instinctions and you both had the same common principles and common causes, unite with that person. You don't have to agree with every issue that they are for, but you can come together on this one specific issue and come together and actually have a better chance, a better outcome than constantly dividing each other. Like what we saw with the Rage Against the War Machine rally in Washington, D.C., where Code Pink, who has been very, very good, very vocal, you know, I support their organization, I support their cause. They didn't want to attend a anti-war rally because some of the participants at the anti-war rally were anti-LGBTQ, so they say. But that's not why they were at the event. The event's about anti-war. You can have a conversation about gay issues afterwards in a separate conversation, but why would you not be against an anti-war rally? You're an anti-war organization. Why would you distance yourself away from that? Specifically because certain participants don't align with your views about gay people. Like, that's not what this is about. So that's why I think, you know, it just seems weird that you're supportive of stopping the genocide Israel's committing to Gazans, but you're trying to distance yourself from the Canada First party. Like, it just seems crazy. You would think they would go hand in hand. And you would think more and more people would align themselves with the Canada First rally. Again, you don't have to agree that, you know, mass deportation is the answer. But if you're someone that agrees that we should be putting our priorities, you know, this country's priorities and investing in our people ahead of supporting a genocide, then you can actually find common ground with that. And you can encourage people to have common ground with that. That's just my take of it.